Hi everybody! Welcome back to another crafting class with me, Aviva, your art director from the Ed Asner Family Center. Today we are going to be making something very hands-on and fun and squishy, and so I hope you're ready to get a little bit messy with your hands today. And if that's not your thing, throw on a pair of rubber gloves. I'm sure we've got a lot of those right now. And let's get a little bit crafty. So today we are going to be making little fairy houses. So that means we are going to be turning a regular old mason jar into a little mushroom house, because we all know that fairies aren't in usual cityscapes like how we usually are. I live in the valley. You don't really see a lot of fairies running around. But in my heart, I feel like if there was some fairies in the valley, they'd be at some of our beautiful parks that we have. So I suggest going outside and doing this project if it's a sunny day, or you know what, get cozy inside, because it's been pretty chilly actually, surprisingly, for our area. But let's talk about some materials you're going to be needing today for your little cute mushroom fairy house, okay? So most importantly, you are going to be needing a little mason jar with a screw top, because I was just recently at Michael's and I saw a lot of mason jars that have those little hinge tops. There's some that have like a little suction top. And because we are going to be covering our mason jar with clay, we don't want, when we pop that top off, to kind of take our mushroom top off with it. You know, we want to make sure it's all staying together, because we don't really want to use any glue today, because we are using, our next material is air dry clay. Air dry clay is super fun, and you don't need a kiln like you usually would with regular clay. So air dry clay, you don't need to fire it, you don't need to put any of those fancy glazes on it. All you need to do is wait about 2 days. I know that's so hard to wait, like all of you fellow impatient people like how I am. I just want immediate gratification. I just want to start painting. But best results, you want to wait a couple of days to let your mushroom house dry before you start painting. But for time's sake today, I'm going to just be making our house and painting it right in front of you. And it should turn out fine. I mean, if you want to paint it immediately after you're done, it won't be as clean. It might mix with the clay a little bit, but that's okay. Makes it a little bit cute and quirky, right? So you're going to need water for your clay as well, because similarly to regular clay, you need water to actually help it kind of spread, to smooth, get all those nice clean lines in there. And I suggest getting some tools. I'm going to be using the back of my paintbrushes today if you want to make some details for your little windows and your doors. Toothpicks, chopsticks, you can use bobby pins, anything with a pointy edge. The whole point of this class is that you can find usually most of these materials around your house, or ordering some of them online, or a super, super quick trip to the craft store if you are able to. All right, and I think that's basically it. Let's make sure we've got something to work on today, because air dry clay does get a little bit messy, so make sure you're on a clean surface, or if you're outside, a nice hard surface to work on. And I think that's gonna be it. I mean, I also have, I guess I didn't say this part, I have some acrylic paint here for once we start actually adding color to our creation today. But yeah, I think acrylic paint would work the best because it's a nice seal. It's water-based, so you might want to add a little bit of a clear coat over the top. I know you can totally find that online or at any craft store too. But that's going to be it for our materials. Definitely have some paper towels nearby. You never know what happens. And let's get started, okay? Come on. Alrighty. So I am going to start out today by taking my air dry clay and kind of opening it up. Let's make sure that all of our materials are out of our way. So I want a nice clean surface, easy to clean up, so I'm not going to be putting anything down today because all of this can really be washed away with water. And you can see already that there are some cracks in our clay, but that's okay. We'll get all those out with some water. So we are going to be starting with a nice handful of clay. It's good to take a good amount because you can always take some away. Okay, and it's already super malleable, super squishy, and let's just start heating that up in our hands by squeezing that around. Oh, I could do this all day, but you want to make sure, stay on track, Viva, come on. So, I got my nice squishy clay here. I'm just going to put that to the side here, and you want to kind of just gauge how big your mason jar is. So if you're making a giant mushroom house and you've got one of those large like ounce mason jars, so you're going to need a lot more clay than this, but this is just like a little small one. So this should be enough because we want to make sure that we have enough clay here to cover to about right underneath the twist top part of the jar, okay? So this is going to be the like stem of the mushroom, which is going to be where our fairy is going to be living today. So let's take our flat surface, and we are going to be using the palm, the kind of like good base part of our hand, to really make a nice circle. And we don't want it to be too thick either, or it's going to take like 5 days, a week for our air dry clay to fully dry, and that's way too long, way too long. So we just want to make sure it's pretty evenly flattened because we are going to be folding it around our jar. So I'm just flipping it and flattening it. Okay, and if it turns out this is a little bit too much for your jar, you can get a little butter knife and cut off that excess. All right, making a little bit of a pizza over here, it looks like. All right. I'm also going to have my water nearby here too, just to make sure that I can easily smooth out whatever I need. You want to make sure all of your materials are very close by. It should be a relaxing process. You shouldn't need to be reaching or struggling to get any of your materials. All right, so I used a little bit of water to kind of smooth it out here. And now, before I actually add water, because water is going to be kind of like our glue today, we just want to kind of lift it up on the sides to see that it'll reach our spot. And I can see that it is reaching that kind of twist top part here, because we'll be smoothing out these bumpy edges in a moment. Okay, so now that I know that this is a pretty good size, I am going to be taking a little bit water, dipping my finger in here, adding a little bit to the bottom here. Okay, and just doing a light press of my jar. And now I'm going to add a little bit more water to the sides. Okay, you don't want to get your clay too wet or it's going to be a little bit hard for it to control, because you don't want it to be super soaking wet or it will start to fall apart. Alright, so I'm going to start to fold up my edges. And some parts are going to kind of overlap, and that's okay. We just kind of smooth those out. Alright, so now we squeeze it. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. I'll show you from the side how it's looking. And we're going to just come around. And if it overlaps that little twist top, that's okay, because we'll just come in just a moment once we are feeling confident with the way our sides look. And then just clean up that top area, just like I've said. Alright, our bottom is looking good. Our sides are looking pretty good. We just want to make sure all those little folded lines are kind of folded and flattened. Alright, looking pretty good. A nice base. So now what we're going to do is we are going to make sure that it is pretty sturdy on there. And you can see in the bottom that I want to press it up also to the top because there's kind of an indent in the bottom. You really want to make sure your clay is really sticking to that glass here. And obviously, because we're not using glue, there is totally a chance of your clay unsticking to the glass at some point, which I think is not super. I don't think it'll really happen because once it's dry, the clay is very hard and it'll kind of just seal and stick around these edges. But if it does happen, no worries. You can just add a little bit of glue, like super glue to the edges or something to keep it to stick a little bit longer. All right, so that's looking pretty good. We can put that down to the table because we are going to be now smoothing out our sides. So let's add a little bit of water, and you can see all those little lumps and bumps really start to disappear with water. Water is really going to be your best friend in this process. Okay. So Steve, this part could be probably time-lapse me just smoothing out.
Yep.
Okay, so now my mushroom stem, the base of my house, is pretty smooth now. And it's okay if it has lumps and bumps, you know. This is supposed to be like a natural, organic looking kind of house. So if there's some lumps and bumps in it, that's okay. Mushrooms are not perfect shaped little plants. I don't know if mushroom would be, mushroom is a plant, right? It's considered a plant. No? Okay, well, I'll learn the facts about this mushroom later on. I'll learn the science behind it in a second. So now, your hands are going to be messy. That's okay. Some other of our materials are going to get a little messy today too, and that's all right. Just make sure you have a paper towel around you to wipe some of that excess off, because now I'm going to be grabbing my scissors, and what I'm going to be doing is around the top here, I'm just going to be slicing off this little bit here because we want to make sure that we can close our jar. I'm kind of bringing my scissors around. Like I said, you can use a butter knife, but you want to make sure that you're really cleaning up those edges here. So I'm just kind of scooping it out with my hands. And we're going to smooth out these little ridges once we cut off this excess. Okay. All right. Got most of that off of there. Just take a little bit more water. Kind of smooth that top part. All right, looking good. Cute. Okay, and if you really want to clean up this little ridge here, all you got to do is take a little paper towel and just clean up this little part. Our little twist top part. Okay, looks good. Alrighty. So now let's throw away this extra bits, or you know what, you can even take these extra bits, put them back in the pot, save all that clay you can, because you can make so many different kind of things with this clay. So now that our base is done, we're gonna let that just kind of, we're gonna put this to the side for a moment, let it just dry slightly. It's obviously not gonna dry fully, but we're gonna let it harden a little bit while we make our roof, so that when we come back to it, it'll be a little bit less wet and easier to add our little details like the doors and the window. Okay, So now we are going to be needing our lid. Actually, why am I so silly? Let's put this on the plate. So we are going to be needing now our lid. So let's take our clay, and we are going to be taking about another little handful. You really don't have to be super accurate with your scoops because you could always add on more. But what I like to do is start with a nice circle once again, just like we did before. I'm kind of squeezing around, just like how you start some pizza dough, like I said. For our original one, use the palm of your hand. And we are going to be doing this in 3 different parts. So, making this nice, flat, rounded bit. You don't want it to come out too far, you know, because then it's more of like an umbrella than a mushroom. So, I really like doing it with my hands, but if you would rather do it with a rolling pin, go for it. But I don't think you should use a rolling pin that you usually use for cooking, because if it's usually like a wooden one, like how most people have, I think some of that clay can get into some of the pores of the wood, and you don't really want to be eating this clay. Not good for your gut. Alright, so now I'm just plopping that over the top. Make sure it's like kind of in the middle there. Let's add a little bit of water, actually. Our little glue, makeshift glue that we've got going on. Put it right in that middle part, because we kind of just made a print finding that middle spot. Just place that down nice and flat, and you're just going to kind of curve it down very gently to the table. Just like that. Good little mushroom. Okay, so now you can see that it's really not sealed on there yet. So we want to make sure that we have a second layer on the inside here that connects this edge to the edge of our little mushroom cap. So let's take about half of the amount of clay that we just took. Okay, let's get it a little bit wet. Squish it around. Oops. Make sure those sleeves are rolled up. Okay, and we are going to make a nice long snake to fill in this little inner part. So to make the snake, you're using your palms once again to go back and forth, rolling it around. You can use your fingertips to lengthen it. Doesn't need to be that long, just needs to go all the way around our cap. Okay, so now that should be long enough. We're going to just put it around here, connect it. Okay, and now this is where water is really going to come in handy. We are going to be taking our water now and blending our snake into our mushroom cap, our little umbrella piece that we already made. So I'm just kind of holding one side here to keep it nice and curved, and then using my finger to really just blend that all together. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to just let you guys know that this is a giant bucket of air dry clay that I got. And there's smaller buckets that you can get that are about half the size, a little bit cheaper. But I think it's worth it to get the bigger size because there's so much you can do with this clay. You can make earrings out of it, like little beads. You can make so many different things with air dry clay. Really get creative with it. I think it's a really cool thing that you can add to your paintings too. If you wanted to make it like a little bit more of like a mixed media, maybe you can add some like little 3D bugs to your painting. That'd be cool if you're making like a cool forest scene. So many opportunities. All right, so you see how I'm just really just blending that to the cap. I'm going to do the other half here, and then we'll work on the top of the mushroom. All right, so now I've got a nice smooth bottom of my mushroom top. So it should look a little bit like something like this. Comes out a little bit from our original cap. Make sure you've got those edges nice and smooth. You can even add a little bit of water to your finger to really just make sure that curve is nice and round. And then we are ready to add our little like mountain top to the top because it's kind of a flat mushroom right now. Let's just add a little bit of height to it, and then I think we're ready to do the best part, which is decorating, adding a little bit of indents for our doors and our windows. Okay, so I'm gonna just lay this flat here. And I'm gonna take just a little bit this time, not so much. Okay, just a little bit. Let's get that nice and wet. And now I'm going to show you a little trick, little clay trick. A best way to connect clay to clay is kind of add a little bit of like you want to like score it a little bit with something sharp. So I'm using my scissors today. I don't suggest using your scissors like this. Let's just get a butter knife out. But to score it, what you're going to do is you're going to just add a few lines going down and a few lines going across. Just like a little checker pattern, doesn't have to be perfect at all. And we're going to do the same thing to this part of our mushroom. Just some downward lines and some horizontal lines. Just like that. And by doing that, it helps it really connect to each other, gives it a little bit of friction, makes it a little less slippery. And let's just add that on there. And so now, all we got to do is take our water to really just blend it out and make a nice kind of mushroom cap looking hill. Now that we've got our mushroom top done and we've got our base done, we can start doing the fun part. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to my hands and grab one of my older paper towels just to get some of that extra gunk off. Like I said, if this is not the texture for you and this is just like way too much of like a sensory mess, then you can definitely just get some gloves on or get someone to help you out with it when it comes to the watery bits. But now, what I'm going to do to get this off, if you have a spatula at home, you can get a little spatula, but I'm going to just use my scissors to just kind of get this little lid off here. There we go. Perfect. So now I'm just gonna swap these guys out. Yeah, this one feels a little bit more dry, less wet. Okay, put that guy over there. And now is the time where you can get creative with it. You can think, how do I want my fairy house to look? Do I want it to have like a double door? Do I want it to have just like a single door because she's just a single fairy living there? Or do I want multiple windows? So this part is totally up to you. I think what I'm going to do for my door is, for my details in general, is I'm going to just have one door and two windows, keep it simple. So I'm going to be taking the back of my paintbrush just to make a little bit of an indent. It helps if you get that tool a little bit wet because then it's less of like a scrape and more of like an indent. Okay, so I'm making a nice curved door here. I'm making a nice upside down U shape. Okay, and then just kind of smooth out those edges with a little bit of water. And now for the windows, you could just do the same thing. Make a little square. So I've got my shapes down there, smoothing it out with some water. All right. Very cute. And so now I'm going to keep it super simple today. So you guys can totally go to town with it, add giant windows. You can even add like a little garden on this side, maybe like a little cat peeking his head out. But really, this indent process, you just want to make sure that it's not super detailed, because once it's dry, you really want to add all those details with the paint. So now, because I'm going to make one of those classic red and white mushrooms, I'm not going to make any indents on the top, because I can really just make my polka dots with paint. So I am going to just clean up my space, clean my hands, and then we are going to get painting. Obviously, my clay is not completely dry. I suggest, if you have the time, wait those couple of days for your for your clay to completely dry and then paint it. But we're just going for it today. Because we're not putting it into a kiln, there's no fear of like something like heating it up and like melting our paint off or anything. It's just going to be some nice air drying. So we are going to start by decorating the roof of our fairy house. So now you can use whatever colors you like. This is totally up to you. I'm going to get a little paper towel nearby just so I'm ready to go in case a spill happens. But let's just go for it. I'm using acrylic paint, just to remind you guys. So I have officially painted the top of my mushroom red. It's beautiful. I'm super happy with how it looks. But before I do those classic white dots that you usually see on these types of mushrooms, I am actually going to wait a second and move on to painting my house, because with acrylic paint, if you kind of just go on and put that white right on top of there, there's a chance of our paint kind of blending. So let's give it a couple of minutes to kind of just dry slightly while we do our house, and then we'll come back to it and put those little spots on, because I want white spots. I don't want pinkish, reddish spots. All right, so I am just going to get a second plate here for my house. Move this guy out of the way and get started here. So usually the stems are white, but even though it's already white clay, I'm just gonna add just a light layer of white around it. So what I suggest doing, the easiest way to paint this, instead of like moving your body around to get a better look at what you're doing, I suggest holding your fingers inside and then just kind of turning it as you go. Okay? All right, I've got a nicely covered base here, nice white, and I did do white because the clay does come out a little bit of like a yellowish white. Okay, and there's so many different types of mushrooms. You don't have to do this classic red one. So now for the door, I think I'm going to do a little brown door. So stick with me here while I just finish up the last few little bits of my details. very cute. I think it's turning out really nice. I'm gonna just clean my plate up. Don't want any extra brown on there. And I am gonna just get a little dollop of black here, just so I can make a little doorknob, because, you know, it's the little things, the little details that kind of make it, you know. So I got a little bit of black. Just gonna do, I was gonna do this with clay actually, I just remembered, but it's okay. We can add a little bit of black paint here for a little doorknob. Very cute. It's a little wonky, but I think it's sweet. So now, while we were doing that, we have this lovely mushroom roof top, and it feels not like super dry in the paint, but we're going to take this little bit of white that I did not actually, you know what, let's pour a little bit more paint. Let's not be lazy about it. So I'm going to pour a little bit more paint, and then we'll do those spots, and then that's going to be it. Alrighty, so I've got some spots on there. I could totally add some more later on, and you can see they are a slight shade of pink because that paint wasn't completely dry underneath there, but that's okay. I'm gonna go over it a little bit later with one other coat. I just wanted to give you guys just an idea on just like what a mushroom this kind of color could look like. But I always suggest doing a few layers of paint. So if you are ready to take a break right now after doing your mushroom, now is a great time to take a little break, come back to it a little bit later with fresh eyes, give it another coat of white, maybe another coat for your windows. But now is going to be the best part. We are going to connect them. I'm going to very carefully move it just because I am impatient and I just want to... It's okay. I just want to see them together. All right. So very carefully, I'm going to lift my mushroom cap. Lovely. And you could totally paint underneath. I'm going to paint this white later on. I think that would be a nice finishing touch. But very carefully. Oh, so yeah, I definitely, this is why I suggest waiting, because you can see my handprints did leave a little bit of a mark, but that's okay. Before I show you the big reveal, fixing these little bits. A little bit more red over here. Last little finishing touches. Nothing to see here. Okay. And now you have a, it's probably better to see it like this. Let's turn her around. Perfect little mushroom house. And I'm not gonna fully like twist it on right now because it is still pretty wet, but it's so cute. All it needs is a little fairy. I don't know if you can see him. Let's see if we can flip it around so you can see our little fairy. Here is our little fairy that's going to be living in our house today. Let's call him, I don't know. Send me a comment. What should we name this guy? Comment on this video what we should name our lovely fairy boy. And we are going to set him right at the top of his little house here. And that is going to be it. So now you have a perfect little fairy house for either You can put anything in it. If you have little fairy toys, like somehow I do, and you want to put them in here, you could put little crystals. You can make it like a little jewelry box. But I just love it because it's like no one would really suspect that anything's in here. It just looks like a little house, but then you could be like, ooh, look what I have inside. A bunch of goldfish. Yeah, put snacks in it. That would be fun too. But this is going to be it today. I really like the way that it turned out. I'd love to see your mushroom little houses. There's so many different cute mushrooms that you guys can recreate and make into a little fairy house. But this is gonna be it. I had a lot of fun making this. I hope you guys did too. I will see you next Saturday for another crafting class. Send me your art at aviva at asnerfamilycenter.org. I'll see you next time, okay? Bye!